Welcome to Morning Infusion with Dr. V, where we are intentional about connecting you with leaders that have overcome so that you know that the possibilities are endless. It's Dr. V here, where our coaching program teaches nurses to work from their computers, making profits around the world and owning their own time. Our special guest today is Keisha Justice. Keisha is the native of Halifax County, my old stomping ground. She attended Southeast Halifax, my rival, and North Carolina A&T State University, where she majored in journalism and mass communications. After graduation, she pursued her career in journalism, which was not her last stop. She went on to attend Charter University to obtain a second degree in communication sciences and disorders. During her journey at Shaw, she embarked upon her apprenticeship closely related to her field. She is the founder of Bosom Buddies Foundation and the owner of Pretty Essentials Women's Boutique. She is a member of the Watts Chapel Missionary Baptist Church in Raleigh, North Carolina, where she serves diligently on the media ministry. Keisha believes that God gives us gifts and talents to serve Him and for His glory. So, welcome, Keisha. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me this morning. Thank you.
So tell us about your childhood. So when you grew up, what was your relationship like with your mother?
So, growing up, my grandparents actually raised me. And the reason why this happened was because my mom had me when she was in college. And so, in order for my mom to go back to finish college, I ended up staying with my grandparents. Now, after my mom finished college, she wanted me to move with her, but I thought otherwise. I didn't want to make any new friends. I didn't want to move to Raleigh. So the best bet that we had at that time was mommy would come pick me up every Friday from school. And I would spend the weekend with her. And then I would go back down to my grandparents' house. And two, they always say I kept my grandparents young. So everybody always knew me as the little girl that, was with her grandma, riding around town with her grandma. But me and my mom, we had a very, very close relationship. Those weekends are like memorable, matchless, like whatever you want to call it. But yes, me and my mom had a very close relationship growing up, even though I was raised by my grandparents.
I love it. I love it. So now when did she decide that she wanted to take you to Raleigh? And you just said you didn't want to go?
Yeah, I did not want to go. I believe it was around my third or my fourth grade year. And as you know, in our counties, like we all go through the same school. We don't change, we all go through with the same classmates. So I was enjoying my friends. I did not
Gotcha.
want to move to Raleigh. So, and I realized in the later years, like in my later years, that was something difficult that my mom had to process. Because even as I got older, she talked about it and she really did want me to come to Raleigh to live with her. But at the same time, she was like, well, I want you to be happy. I don't want to disturb your grades. I don't want you to have to make new friends. So she was always looking out for me. So in the end, we both were happy with the weekends that we decided to do.
And you were an only child now, right?
Yep, I sure am. Mhm.
Okay. Now your mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. What were some of her first signs and what were the challenges she faced trying to get a diagnosis?
Well, I remember I was actually about to go on a cruise. And she was like, I have something to tell you, but I'll wait till you get back on the cruise. Again, she's looking out for me, right? Um, and so I got back from the cruise and she was like, I think I'm going to the doctor. I was like, what's wrong? Um, she was like, my breast is swelling, and this is after I had my mammogram. Like everything was fine on the mammogram. She was like, but my bra is getting a little tight on the sides, and my breast is swelling. So I was like, okay. I didn't think any, a big deal of it or anything like that. So she went back after the original mammogram. She went back to get, I believe at that time it was an ultrasound. Now it's kind of like a blur to me, but it was several times. She went back to get like an ultrasound. They said, no, we're not finding anything. She went back then to probably get a CT scan. No, we're not finding anything. She went back to get a
A
MRI.
biopsy, right? A biopsy, because I remember us talking about the first biopsy that she had.
Yes, so the biopsy was toward the end. So
Gotcha.
she ended up doing like the biopsies toward the end. And the last biopsy was the one that they said, okay, we found inflammatory breast cancer. So she had went through many hoops, like many of them, from, like I said, CT scans to 3D mammograms to MRIs to, I mean, everything you probably could think of to get that diagnosis. And when she got the diagnosis, it was finally from that CT scan. I'm sorry, from that biopsy, that last biopsy. And they diagnosed her with HER2 positive inflammatory breast cancer. It was right around stage 3 or stage 4. And I think because it was such an aggressive breast cancer or such an aggressive cancer, they went ahead and said, hey, stage 4 inflammatory breast cancer.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Mm.
Now, what were your thoughts? What were your first thoughts whenever when she told you that she had breast cancer?
Oh, she's going to beat this. That was my very first thought because my mom, strong-minded, strong will. Yeah, she's gonna beat this. I always try to stay positive. I had an aunt who was actually diagnosed with breast cancer 12 years. And one day, I believe before my mother was diagnosed, my aunt was doing fine. So I saw no type of, I didn't see death. I didn't believe in anything. Like I just didn't. I had to stay positive for my mom. So even with all of that, yeah, I was like, oh, she's gonna beat this. So I believe I was traveling back and forth to work in New Bern at the time. So I had a lot of car time. And I would travel back and forth. Now she always got on me for texting and driving. Please. Don't. So
We're gonna edit that out.
So I'm in the car, I'm driving because now, I talk to my mom every day going to work. Um, and one day she was telling me as I was traveling, no, I was still, that's why she wanted to make sure I was like still in a comfortable spot. But after she told me her diagnosis, um, of course I went to Google. I was like, why not Google my mom's disease? I need to know everything there is about this type of cancer. I need to know whatever I can find out so I can question her doctors. Like, I need to be an advocate for her. So I ended up looking up inflammatory breast cancer. First thing I saw was very aggressive breast cancer. I was like, okay, that didn't shake any grounds. And you know how you stroll sometimes and you get a little scared to go to prognosis? I was the daredevil. I went ahead, I went to prognosis, and it did say the prognosis weren't good. The likelihood of her surviving and or beating this type of cancer was not good.
Keisha.
I'm sorry. Of course, I had a moment there, and I was emotional, but I couldn't show my emotion to my mother. So as I could not show my emotion to my mother, I couldn't share it with anyone because we're a very close knitted type of family. So anything that I shared with her or anything that I shared with her siblings, it was going to eventually get back to her because again, we all talk. So I was emotional, but I pulled myself together. My mindset changed just like that again. Like, oh, well, she's going to beat this. Like, she's all right. So those are my emotions. And that was my faith too. My faith really started to kick in at that point because I knew that my mom was beginning to fight for her life.
It's interesting, you say that because I had a brother who had pancreatic cancer,
Mhm,
and he never told my mom that he had pancreatic cancer.
mhm,
And I'm sure that she may have been told that, her prognosis was poor.
mhm.
And she probably never told you, and you probably both were keeping it away from each other. And
Yeah.
so that is very interesting. Now, she had a double mastectomy. Now, some women have issues with body image when going through this. Did she voice any issues with you?
Mm-mm. She didn't have any issues. Everything my mother stayed positive. She stayed remained
Keisha? We'll wait for her to come back on.
sorry about that.
That's okay.
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 So I'm not
So
sure what part the last part that you heard, but we were talking about, my mom and her, like, uh, her strong will and whatever. As she was going through her cancer, like I remember at night she stayed up sometimes, and she said at night when she was up, God gave her this Bible verse, "In everything give thanks." So she took that through her entire journey. So her imaging, she was like, give thanks. She was like, I'm getting a new body. I'm getting new boobs. Like, yes, because I think, well, this was her second major surgery. She had an appendix removal like early on when I was younger, but this was like her first major surgery. So going up under, I think we all were emotional that day, but we're a praying family. We all came in and we were just like praying, and but her mindset for her imaging, it was from what I saw. Now let me tell you this. My mom was very, very good at not showing her emotions to me or anyone else. And I've learned that from her. Like, I can be emotional, you would never know.
mm,
So she was very, very
interesting.
good at that. And from that point, I never remember her being sad. She was always, always positive about everything, even her body imaging. She mentioned it once or twice, but it wasn't like, oh,
Big
I'm
thing.
sad because I'm losing both of my boobs. It was none of that.
Gotcha. Now, when she went for reconstruction, she could have gotten the fat for of her with the breast tissue from her identical twin, because she has an identical twin,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
Now, so tell us about what the physician told you about that surgical intervention.
So, long story short, my mom woke up. The surgery that she had used the tissue, basically gave her a tummy tuck. And the tissue
Well,
that she
I'm sure
used,
she liked that better.
she did. So again, her imaging was not a problem. Okay. So yes, they used the tissue from her stomach to form the breast. Immediately when my mom woke up out of surgery and she came to like out of the anesthesia, she started feeling herself and she was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna be an A cup." And Lord Jesus, the nurses, of course, they were like A cups. Miss Hickman, it's okay. It's okay. I'm an A cup. My mama said, honey, you don't understand. I was a triple D.
Hilarious.
So when we went back out to talk to the doctor, I voiced that to the doctor and I was like, well, I know my mom was a triple D. I know we discussed beforehand that we can't get her to a triple D, but are we going to get any larger? He was like, yeah, we probably can get her back to a C cup. I was
Mhm.
like, it's not really a triple D, but okay. I think she'll be okay with that. Again, I'm her advocate, right? So Her twin sister is sitting there, and she says, "Well, I wish I would have. I wish you could have used some of my fat." And the doctor paused, and the doctor said, "Wait, you do look just like her." He was like, I wish I would have known that. He was like, we actually could have used your fat because of the DNA. You are identical twins. So the DNA matches each other. So we don't have to worry about any of that. And this actually would have been the first surgery in the States, in the United States, that would have been performed. So my theory was, I was like, he just wanted to be a part of research. But, but anyway, I wish that he would have known that. And I think that would have been the second surgery across the world that would have been done. But yeah, that would have my aunt would have been happy. My mom would have been larger. Um, Everybody would have just been happy. Overall, we still were happy and we were pleased. So she had to go back. So that's like a two-part surgery. They do the tummy tuck, they apply the fat, and then they have to go back and then they have to expand it just a little bit because at this point, like she had just came off of radiation, probably 6 weeks out of radiation. So that her radiation, would heal, or her radiation radiated spots would heal. So at that point, she was supposed to go back for her second part of reconstruction. And she never made it back because by the time she made it back, she went back to her oncologist because she was experiencing some other type of issues. Um, it was around mid-August when she was experiencing these issues. And again, she never was like, let me think about, my reconstruction. Now she's still in the fight for her life. So we put the reconstruction on hold as she went back to her oncologist. And it was because she was hearing these weird noises in her head. Um, every time she would walk, she would kind of like veer to the right. And one day I had the nerve to ride with her. And I noticed that she was like driving to the right. And I was like, hmm. So I told her, I said, you're not driving back home. So I hopped in the driver's seat. They had already said, no, this isn't vertigo. This isn't something. So, and with me, I'm like, because I'm a hearing specialist, I'm like, okay, mama, let me go check your ears. Let me make sure everything is okay. Let me make sure everything is all right with your equilibrium. Like, let me run the middle ear testing. Let me do tympanometry. Like, so I'm going like, because these are ticking bells in my ear, because these are things that patients that I see who experience vertigo that they have. So after she wasn't diagnosed with vertigo, she went back to her oncologist, and they said, well, here at the cancer center, we always, how did they say it? We hope for the best, but we expect the worst. Now, I will tell you, my family did not like that. They did not like that statement. They voiced that they didn't like that statement, but me being in a medical profession, I understand that.
Right. I'm not sure
So
whether, I'm not sure I would have said that though, right? I mean, that's rough, right?
yeah,
You know,
um,
I don't know.
it, it was difficult. It was difficult, but I get it. And again, maybe I was just more receptive of it because of the like me working in a medical field.
Gotcha. Now, when was it that you realized that your mother was getting to the end of life?
After that diagnosis, when she went back to figure out what was going on in her head, they diagnosed her with metastatic breast cancer, right? It had taken itself to the brain. Okay. Um, Again, my thought, my mom's gonna survive this. They did this stereotactic radiation.
So one of the things that we wanted to talk about, actually doing this podcast is end of life. Keisha's kind of frozen at this point. Um, so,
I'm back.
okay,
Okay.
all right.
My goodness. Today will be the day, right? Dear God.
So you
But
were talking
so
about.
I was talking about, I'm not sure how much you all heard about when she was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. She did stereotactic brain radiation, which was very new to the industry. Even in 2017, it was very new to the industry. And what that is they take the radiation, instead of doing whole brain radiation, which could potentially bring early onsets of dementia, because she was at such an early age, around 46 or 47. They didn't want to do that. So they did the stereotactic radiation. They radiated the 7 to 8 lesions that she had on the brain. And then we went back for a follow-up visit with the radiologist. And he was like, I have two things to tell you. We have good news and we have bad news. I was like, okay, give it to us however you want to. And she was the same way, like, just give it to me. The stereotactic radiation shrunk the lesions and it reduced it. By this time, mother had been diagnosed with leptomeningeal carcinomatosis. And I was like, what is that fancy word? So again, here I am, not even WebMD, but Google and all of that. I'm like, what is that? So I'm on my researching again, and I find that that cancer has the prognosis of 6 weeks. So now I am getting a little bit more, a little bit more shaken. But again, my faith was still like stable. I'm human. So, we're still going to doubt. But he said, if you, okay,
All right.
we spend the most of our time this morning with the internet just going. But we're going to pray this thing through. Lord, please touch this technology. But like I was saying, by this time, my faith had kind of been shaken. But because I do stand on steady grounds and I do believe, I still have my faith. And he said that everything, in everything, give thanks. And if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, that's all you need is faith the size of a mustard seed. So I stuck with that. And eventually, I got sad for sure. But I couldn't share that with my mom. I couldn't share that with my family. So June 3rd, my mom got diagnosed December of 2017. My mom, and the expectancy of this was, or the prognosis is 6 weeks, remember? So December of 17, she was diagnosed. June of 18, which was 6 months. She went to the hospital the day after my birthday. She was not going to go in the hospital the day of my birthday, again, because she was thinking about me, her only child. She went into the hospital June 3rd. She never came back out, and she passed away on June 25th. Even when she went into the hospital, we still had that positive mindset, like, we still remain positive throughout the whole thing. And so the doctors were the one, and I wish I remembered that doctor name, that actually came in and told my mom her prognosis. she never wanted to know. So that's the reason why I never shared with my family, because we talked, so it would have gotten back to her. But at this point, I began to realize, because she was at that point put in a medically induced coma, which they said it was because she was in pain. I know my mother, she wasn't in pain. So that's for, and I say that to say, for those of you who are out there who know your parents or know your family members, if you know that they are not in pain, you know your family member more than the medical professionals. Yes, they've studied, they've had all of that, but you know your family member more than they do. And I wish that I would have been a stronger advocate for her instead of them putting her in that medically induced coma. Now that I think back on it, I wish I would have been a little bit more firm and a little bit more strong to say, no, this isn't the right way. This isn't it.
So now I want to talk real quick because we only got 4 minutes.
Mhm.
So there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. I want to talk about the end of life discussion,
Mhm.
okay, and how you handle that. And then the second thing that I want to talk about is bosom buddies.
Okay.
So now in the end of life discussions that you had, how did that go with you? Like whenever the doctor came in and told you that the prognosis was poor,
Mhm.
like do you wish that you would have had that conversation beforehand? Like, how did you handle that? Like, would you have wished that, like, way back before she was even diagnosed with cancer, like, what would you have liked to see from us as medical professionals for you?
Um, I do believe that if we did have that conversation beforehand, if we would have gotten things in order. And a lot of African American families, we don't believe in talking things like that before it's too late or the time has come. So I do recommend that anyone elderly, anyone that's recently diagnosed, not to say that your day is going to end tomorrow, but anyone, make sure that you're talking about those things so that your family can be at ease when the day comes. So yes, I do wish that we would have had that discussion, but again, our positivity, it wouldn't let us have it, because we didn't see death at that time. And when the doctors came in, my family was still reluctant, but at that point, I had accepted it. So I definitely grieved before my mother passed.
Gotcha. Now, bosom buddies. Now you are now the CEO of Bosom Buddies. So tell
Yeah.
me about Bosom Buddies.
So Bosom Buddies was birthed after my mother's passing. It was birthed in order to keep her legacy. My mom had a very strong legacy. She's very outgoing. She's very social. Everything. So I wanted to keep her legacy going. She'd love to tell her story, which is why I'm glad that I had the opportunity to talk with you today. But yes, so Bosom Buddies was just that. It was to keep her legacy alive. And during her time where she was down and she couldn't do anything, we realized that other cancer patients were reaching out to her, sending her encouraging words. People would come to the house. They would run grocery errands for us. They would go pick up medications. They would do these little things. So to keep her legacy alive, I was like, well, if I can give back to another family the way the other families poured into us while we were going through, I would love to do that. I love giving back anyway. I love being a part of the community. So I created Bosom Buddies to continue her legacy and to give back to those who are going through cancer, and not to forget about the caregivers because they're oftentimes forgotten. So Bosom Buddies was established, and what our organization does is we pair cancer patients together, so they can talk about their cancer experience, as well as we want to make sure that we're taking care of the caregivers, advocating, sharing resources, and doing the whole umbrella of things that family members should do, family members and caregivers should do for their patients and their loved ones as they're going through.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So thank you for showing up, even with all our technical issues this morning. So we will be starting another cohort of VP Nursing Business Academy in October. It's a 6-month comprehensive program where nurses can make profit from working from their computers anywhere around the world, owning their own time. If this interests you, you can jump on a call so that you're able to gain clarity on how to create multiple streams of income. Sign up at vpnursing.com. Ask that you like and share this podcast. And just know that Morning Infusion with Dr. V is where we are intentional about connecting you with leaders such as Keisha that have overcome and that you know that the possibilities are endless. You guys have a phenomenal rest of your day.